a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
What I saw was a metallic object that appeared to be about 30 feet in diameter and was probably about 15 feet tall at its highest point, disc-shaped. No sound to the object at all, although we did have considerable amount of electromagnetic interference on our car systems. The ignitions would not work. Both the radios in the Border Patrol car, the federal radio and the state radio, were completely out. It hovered in our area for probably about 3 minutes, and suddenly it rose up, turned over on edge, and the only thing I could see at that point then were three knob-like structures that were sticking out from the underside of the object. The object started spinning very rapidly, and as it spun, it started lifting up in the air and picked up speed, and all of a sudden, just with a real sharp burst of speed, shot straight up in the air and was gone in a matter of seconds.
Hello, and welcome to another week here at the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Congress is stirring, science is stewing, and I can hardly wait until something is served. But Jazz Shah will be here today to help us understand what spices our Congress is adding. Stay tuned for that. But first, there's an interesting astronomical story that's taking place, which you might find interesting. It's long been speculated that there's another planet in our solar system, 10 times the size of Earth and 20 times more distant than Neptune. In 2015, those rumors gained new weight as top astronomers produced computer simulations showing that an unknown, far-flung planet would explain strange asteroid orbits that we occasionally see. The race to discover this planet, Planet X, was on. But using the latest, most powerful telescopes, no one was able to even identify a possible candidate for Planet X. And that's still the case, but we now have a possible Planet X candidate. It was recently found by looking at almost 40-year-old data from a 1983 infrared sky survey. Now, time will tell if this is indeed the elusive Planet X. But this story drives home a point Avi Loeb made recently at the National Cathedral. You need to be using the right net. Astronomers looking for Planet X at least know what size holes their net can have. People looking for UFOs are not as lucky. We have rough sailing ahead, but we shouldn't be discouraged when our nets come up empty. Adjust and cast again. Now I want to thank the wonderful person, Anton Petrov, for bringing this Planet X news to me through his channel. You should all go check that out. And also go check out my channel, Rather Be Squidding, where I take stories like this a step or two into the strange. But do that in a different tab. We're ready to kick things off here now. So please welcome fellow hosts, Luis Jimenez and UFO Jane.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hello, hello,
Hey, everyone.
hello, guys. How you doing?
It's good to be
Doing
here.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. How are you? How was your weekend, guys?
Nice and relaxing over here. It's windy
Okay.
now, though.
I may not be as talkative as normal, though, because I'm fighting a cold, guys. Just so you know. So I had a good weekend, though.
Okay.
Speaking of, I'll be muting myself periodically.
Yeah, fight strong.
Well, we get it, Jane. We appreciate you being here. I wish you told me I would have given you the night off.
Well, I might actually have to. But
Okay.
I'm gonna try. I'm actually getting a coughing attack right now, guys.
I can see it on your face, girl. Yeah. Oh, poor Jane. We should probably let her take the night off. Right? I'm looking at you, rather.
Yeah.
I mean, hello, you're here.
Love to have her, yeah. But if,
Yeah.
but do take care of yourself, Jane.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's take her out right now while she has a coughing fit, and then she can let us know in the chat. Take your time. Go get some water. In the meantime, let's intro the show. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha, wherever you are around the world. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP, UFO, emerging tech, and science stuff. I messed that up. It's not supposed to be science stuff. It's supposed to be something else. Anyway, futurism. That's what.
Science stuff works. I'm down with science stuff.
Science stuff is cool too. And we do that from time to time. It's just not as eloquent. Anyway, let us get to the show. Thank you guys so much for being here. I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes for providing all the tunes on the show. Of course, the show is available about usually an hour after the show goes live. So if you're on iTunes, Spotify, you can find it there or wherever you find your podcasts. Please do us a favor, rate and review. It goes a very long way to helping make sure the show grows on a podcast level. So totally appreciate that. Of course, like, share, subscribe. We're only about 150 subs away from 5,000. It helps with the algorithm. Again, if you want to help the show grow, those are the best ways to do it. It doesn't have to be a super chat. They are open. If you want to get your question in there, please do so, but not necessary, and we've also got our Patreon. So, if you want to help support the show, nothing is hidden behind paywalls. Everybody gets the same access no matter how much you pay in the Patreon. So please do us a favor. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. Of course, speaking of Avi Loeb, rather be squidding. Avi Loeb's going to be on the show on Friday.
Yeah, that's going to be killer. Looking forward to that.
And I know he's doing a conversation with Max Moskovich over the weekend with Avi Loeb, Christopher Mellon, and Lou Elizondo. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
Sunday.
That's coming right up, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be, after our show, which is cool. And yeah, a lot of people are looking forward to this discussion, and I think hopefully there's some good nuggets that we could take from it. All right, well, are you ready to get started?
Let's do this.
All right, man. Without further ado, so Jane's going to take the night off. So bless you, Jane. Have a good night. I hope you feel better. And let's bring on, the man who always comes to the rescue when the show is in need. Renowned, infamous Jazz Shaw, who's the editor, reporter for Salem News, the Debrief Media, and a U.S. Navy veteran. And, of course, the Dolphin Emperor of the strange and unusual. Jazz Shaw, how you doing?
Doing great, guys. Best as anybody can do under the circumstances, I guess. It's been a weird couple of weeks.
Couple weeks.
Glad to be here. A lot of big news and, some really exciting things happening.
No sweat, man. Well, okay, so you not only the Debrief and Salem Media, but you also are a writer for Hot Air, correct?
Hot Air, National Review, Washington Examiner at times. Yeah,
Mhm.
I show up in a whole bunch of places, yeah.
Because how long have you been a journalist, Jazz, now, officially?
Since 97.
Okay.
Before that, I did primarily technical writing. And I was covering the energy industry, which I still do now, and but then I got into full-time writing late 90s, early 2000s, particularly after 9/11. And, I've just been writing ever since, and people somehow seem to feel whatever my meanderings are worth, it's enough to pay me. So, they've kept me employed. So I'm very appreciative.
Christopher says, even the Debrief, if we bug them enough.
Well, we said Debrief already, right? Yeah, I got another article coming on the Debrief shortly. I write for the Debrief as often as I can. That's not one of my main gigs, but I'm part of the team, and I support those guys. They do a lot of great work.
Well, you support a ton of people in the community, man. You are just like this support machine. For lack of better terms. This is your article in the Hot Air. It's called, "Is Congress About to Say the Unthinkable in Its UAP Investigations?" So let's start here, Jazz. I wanted to go over, I wanted to still dive into the Gillibrand Amendment, or Gillibrand Amendment. Gillibrand, right?
No, Gillibrand.
Gillibrand.
You had it right the first time.
Darn it. I know, because you had given us that. Okay, so in the Gillibrand Amendment, just because we only had an hour the other day, and I kind of really wanted to take our time with it today and just really dive into it, because again, I think, and officially it's not called the Gillibrand Amendment, it's called SA 4281.
Right.
Let's do it. So this article, I read it, I loved it. Where do you want to start with it, I guess, is my first question.
This is one that I wrote not primarily from stuff that we ferreted out ourselves, but from what was being said publicly by people who had not said as much publicly previously. And when the Gillibrand Amendment came out, and we also have the House version, we've been hearing the same language, and everybody that follows the subject is familiar with this. When they talk about what are these strange things that the UAP task force has been looking into, and excuse me, the new ASRO office will be looking into, what are they, where are they coming from? And the default language was always, well, we don't know, we're seeing things and we're trying to investigate what they are, but we're very concerned about the national security aspects. Could it be black tech from the US? Could it be the Russians? Could it be the Chinese? Things like that. Could it be a national security threat? Could it be a flight safety concern? And these are all valid concerns, by the way. Everybody seems to agree on that. But that's where the language stopped. But there was always the undercurrent, particularly in the UFO Twitter community and everybody else. It's like, you're saying you're pretty sure it's not the Russians or the Chinese. And you're saying, and we had in the June 25th report, it's not ours. Well, the list of suspects starts to get a little thin at that point, doesn't it?
Right.
It's like, well, then where are they coming from? And it's only been in the last week or so we have seen a major shift, and we have heard words said by relatively high level people that have not been said in official capacity before. We had the director of national intelligence, Ms. Haynes, was at an event that was broadcast from the National Cathedral in Washington, where she actually said to the public, well, and it could be something that we're observing that might be coming extraterrestrially. And as an English major, I'm not sure if that's a word yet, but you get what she was saying. And then the House member who from Arizona, who sponsored the House version of the bill that we're going to be talking about, he had not put anything very strong in his initial language, but he went out, and I don't know if you got it queued up or whatever, but I put it in my article. You can watch it, where Gallego went and did an interview where he tossed out at a minimum 4 times the words either alien or extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
And so we're breaking into new ground here, where people are saying the stuff out loud that was not supposed to be said because it was politically dangerous.
Right.
And now, and we can get into as much or as little as we can, there's word coming out that people have been discussing for the last day and a half, that now that he's sort of broken the seal, there's going to be some more people that are going to be daring to possibly use the A word. Like, if it's not Russian, it's not Chinese, it's not ours, maybe we can't totally take off the table the idea that it's aliens. So and that's what's coming, really. Yeah. That's what's coming.
Yeah. Okay. So go for it. Rather, I go.
Well, I find that this whole discussion fascinating, and I think the language is pretty important here. My take on it. They say it's not ours, it's not theirs, and you say that doesn't leave many other options on the table. But if you're willing to really kind of go out there still are a number of things on the table, right? Like time travel, offshoot humans,
Dolphins.
God, dolphins,
Dolphins,
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, nobody wanted to buy the Dolphins thing, so I'm kind of,
do you think by them kind of suggesting that it is extraterrestrial-y or aliens, that they're kind of shutting off those other really weird possibilities, or do you think it's kind of like potentially a bridge to those weirder possibilities?
That's a great question, rather. And I think that there's been enough in the zeitgeist nationally going back a very long time. And I mean, we're going back to the 50s and 60s to say, well, we may not be the only intelligent species in the universe. We may not be alone, right? And there's been a lot of, fiction stuff, a lot of science stuff, so many discussions that have been discussed here on this show with you guys, where that's becoming more of an accepted, well, if we don't have another answer, that's possible. Now, people who are inside of this community and the crossover communities that look at a lot of really strange things, and I use strange in the most respectful manner possible. Could it be time travelers? Could it be, humans from the future? There's a lot of discussion about the quantum universe, and maybe there's multiple universes, and these could be, like cross-dimensional things. To answer your question, this is only an opinion. I think it took hard enough work and a long enough time for them to go, okay, there might be some other intelligent species out there. I don't think we're at the point where people in elected office and people that have to worry about their careers are ready to go. Or it could be time travelers, or it's a multidimensional universe and we're in the Matrix. You know, I think that might still be a bridge too far. I'm not saying those ideas at this point should be ridiculed, but I do think that people who are politicians, people who are in senior leadership, it took a lot of work to get them to say, okay, maybe it's aliens. They're not, in my opinion, to answer your question, rather, I think there's a, a much longer road to go before these same people we're discussing tonight are willing to go, or could be time travelers. It has to go in steps, to get them to consider what they're considering saying now was a huge amount of work. And I wanted to bring up, going back to the Big Phone Home 1, not 2. We were out there, all of us, you guys just drove something magnificent. And a lot of us, including me, were contacting elected representatives. I've been in contact just in the last week with several offices of elected people, and getting them to consider those possibilities, because we don't have really a lot of better options from the intelligence that's available. To get them to come to that point, I think it's baby steps, rather, and getting them to say, well, if it's not us and it's not the Russians and it's not the Chinese and nobody else really has that much tech, if that's the case, then maybe we might want to consider some sort of non-human intelligence from somewhere else in this physical universe. I think we scare them off if we try to immediately turn around and push them and go, oh, but it could be time travelers. It could be a multiverse. It could be, no, it took a lot to drag them over this line and get them to say what they're saying now, and what a couple of more senior people were being told, excuse me, are about to say. They're not going to go, and now that we've said that, it could be Zeus. They're not going there. So I would encourage everybody who's watching what's going on, and I think this week is a very important week in terms of ending UAP secrecy and disclosure, that we're going to see some more things unfolding. But I also don't want to whip the horse so hard that it bucks. It took a lot to get some of these people even to this point. And if you're one of the people that says, oh, it could be multidimensional, I don't disagree with you. I don't think we know for sure any of this, right? But don't ask the people who have to get elected again every 2 years to come out and go, oh, also it could be bosons or, whatever the thing of the day is. We got them to come this far, and they're about to go, as far as I can tell, a little bit further and start saying the things we've been wanting them to say and asking the questions of the deep chimneys in our intelligence agencies and their civilian partners, the military, all that. They seem to be ready to ask those questions and determine how much of it could be shared with the public. I think that's huge progress. Don't push them right now to go, also could be dinosaurs.
Right. Dino beavers.
Don't right, dino beavers. Please don't push them that far. I think what we're getting right now, I'm really impressed. That's just my take.
I'd agree. I'd love for them to say non-human intelligence instead of aliens, but them saying aliens is a giant step in the right direction.
The one that we're hearing from, just before you go, Luis.
Yeah.
The next one we're going to hear, if it goes the way that we're hearing, it's not going to use the word aliens, but it will use extraterrestrials and it will use non-human. And I think those are the more technical terms they're comfortable with. Aliens, I think, still has a little bit of a hangover of, X-Files kind of stuff. But extraterrestrial, non-human in a vast universe, I think these are phrases they're getting more comfortable with. And if that's what they're willing to give us, personally, I want to chalk that up as a win.
Yeah. Rather's rubbing his hands together. I am too.
Love it.
I think rather I think it's the first place the mind goes to as what it could be, right? For whatever reason, the brain automatically goes, oh, it must be aliens. Like, I don't know what it is about that, but that's where we always seem to go first. And I think that in 5 years will be the bridge to start maybe really thinking about these other non-human or interdimensional or omniterrestrial or underwater civilizations, like dolphins. I think all sorts of dino beavers, all of that stuff can start being talked about, just as long as we get to the starting point of there's a there and they are real. We have, we need more science, we need more data, and this is what this new office, if this bill passes, is going to be. Everybody's calling it ASRO, but just so everybody understands what it is, the Anomaly, Surveillance, and Resolution Office. They're trying to get to a resolution. It's going to be a permanent office. So I can tell you, it's funny that you say that, rather, because I was reading the bill again today, and I highlighted this, and I thought it was interesting that this is the first thing that the office, the first thing in the bill that I was like, whoa, okay, I'm glad I reread it. But the as far as the task force is no longer there. And the first thing they asked for is military and civilian personnel employed by or under contract to the department or an element of the intelligence community shall have access to procedures by which they shall report incidents or information, including adverse psychological effects. Physiological effects, excuse me. Involving or associated with unidentified phenomena directly to the office.
How sad is it that I had that memorized, that I had to correct that?
No, that's not sad at all. No, I appreciate
That's amazing, Jay.
It's amazing. That's why you're a journalist and I'm some schmo on the microphone. Dude, that's the first thing. The first thing, physiological effects. That's pretty damn close to everything else that we just talked about, including dino beavers and Dolphin Empire.
Right.
That, and then the next paragraph that starts, same exact thing that it asked for. I highlighted it. I was like, man, that is insane. That's insane. But this is a question for you, I'm assuming here, Jazz, from NeuroStream with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. The bill did the bill itemize how much the Defense Authorization Act would be able to accrue? Essentially, he said that a $768 billion would be allocated for the new UFO office. Is that true?
No. The House version has a general range that's way lower than that. The Senate version only has a proposed amendment. And I would guarantee you, just from my experience in covering bills that go through, no, there isn't that amount of money that's about to be put into ASRO. But it could be a very substantial amount of money. We won't know yet. That's all going to be hammered out in when they go into the final combination process between the two bills. So, no, we have no idea what the total amount of money is, but the total amount of money is going to be vastly larger than was ever put into ATIP. It's not going to be gigantic, because if it gets gigantic, there's going to be people on both sides that get scared off. And we've already heard that from numerous members. It's not going to be tens of billions of dollars.
Right.
If it is, there's a lot of people, when there's a huge argument about all the other money we're spending on so many things, and the national debt is skyrocketing.
That's the first thing they're going to point to.
Yeah, right. That's not a thing that's going to happen.
Right.
Although when you look at the 22 million that ATIP got, or OSAP, depending which version of history we're talking about these days, I mean, that's a rounding error. That's nothing. If you're going to set up an office, I would say it'll be in the billions.
Really?
Oh, yeah, but not lots and lots of billions.
No, but I was thinking
I'll take one.
I'd take one. I'd take 1 billion.
I think you're going to get at
good.
least one. I think you might get somewhere in the range of 3 or 4. That, as sad as it is to say, if you're concerned about the United States budget and our debt and all that, it's like, really? You're going to say 2 or 3 billion is only 2 or 3 billion? The sad reality is, it is only 2 or 3 billion when we just passed a $1.5 trillion bill. Last year there was a $3.5 trillion COVID relief bill. We've got another Build Back Better thing that's going to be.
That doesn't even include the budget.
Right. And even if we got like 700 million or 1 billion, that's enough to run a relatively small office with a lot of muscle for quite a while. If you're just paying the people, you're paying the various things. So I would not be shocked if it was, it might be as low as, like $750 million or maybe $1.25 billion. Nobody's going to go to war on this. There's nobody in the final negotiating process that's going to go, okay, we can put $750 billion into your new military program, but you don't get a $1.25 billion for your UFOs, bitch.
Right.
No, but nobody's saying that.
Right.
I think it's going to be a healthy budget.
I was going to say, I kind of wanted it around 1 billion. Now, let me ask you, okay, so if they do come up to a final number of it, would that be per year $1 billion, or $1 billion for the existence of the program? Because if that's the case, I'd like to secure the cash now and get $4 to $5 billion, maybe $7 billion, and then that way it guarantees the office for at least 2 decades. I would think, with that kind of money.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
You don't think so?
No, everything in the NDAA is prorated on first year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Okay. There'll be figures like that, but everything except, particularly in this case, when it's something we're discussing in the middle of a term of a president, you've got the guaranteed money for the first year. Probably, I would say, if this gets voted on, as we believe it's going to be sometime in this month or early December at the latest, it'll probably be 2 years. And so if they say $1 billion, it's actually going to be like 500 million this year, 500 million next year.
Right.
But then it gets an introductory free pass. So when we go to do the next NDAA, it's like, okay, we've done this, and now we would like to make sure this continues. nobody's ever guaranteed anything for 10 years. For
Right.
anybody that doesn't know how government works, Congress can go and pass a gazillion dollars. The
Right.
next Congress gets to vote on that.
Right.
So what they're voting on is what they're going to be voting on is the money that they can definitely control. That's for the next fiscal year. And if they hold on to power, possibly the fiscal year after that, they can say it's the intent, or they say the will of the Congress, that this will continue and in perpetuity or with other conditions. But the next Congress that comes along, if it changes significantly, they can turn around next fall and go, no, we're not spending any more money on your damn UFOs. Or they
Right.
can say, wow, this is hugely important. We need to triple this.
Right.
That can all change. What we're looking at is 1 year and at most 2 years. So if we got $500 million a year for 2 years, I think that's a reasonable outcome we could be looking at. And I think it would get a lot of, I'll say it'll get enough support and it won't get any opposition. And we'll probably have that. So I think we're probably good for 2 years. It depends what they produce and what the mood of the country is 2 years from now. And then that decision will be made again. There's a new NDAA every year, guys, every year. And
Right.
everything can change every time. So what we're looking for right now is short-term victories. And I think we got one very close to being in hand.
Yeah. What were you going to say, rather? Sorry.
When you mentioned muscle, one of the things I was wondering is, does this kind of new office, the anomalous survey, the ASRO, does that have muscle with it? If people don't give them information, is there some teeth that they can go and actually get stuff that they request?
What you're talking about, and I used in my article the word teeth multiple times. That's exactly what this has. It has teeth. ATIP had no teeth, none whatsoever. It barely had a budget, and Lou Elizondo or anybody else could walk down to the chief of the Air Force and go, hey, give us all your UAP data. And as Lou has insinuated on multiple occasions, they could turn around and go, I'm going to hold up the wrong finger.
Thank you, John.
And they
This is a
had
family show.
they had nothing to say in response when they were told to go F off. And they would go back home and be like, I don't know, we didn't get anything. And we've had this discussion back during the first big phone home. I still recall when we talked about this. That was the teeth that was lacking. ASRO, with the full heart and backing of the Congress. Now they have an office that has a big budget, and it's the same committees, particularly the Armed Forces Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee and the two matching committees in the House. Guess who approves the budget for the military? That's who approves the budget for the military. And if you turn around now with a Senate and House approved office that has its own budget and says, give us this, and they tell you to do that, now the Senate and the House have the ability to turn around and go, oh, nice budget you got there. Be a shame if anything happened to it. And I'm sorry, I know that sounds cynical.
No, I love
That's
it.
how the sausage
That's how it works.
is made.
Yeah.
And they will almost undoubtedly get some of these very secretive sectors in intelligence and the military if they turn around and go, nope, no way, can't talk about this. And then go, oh, all right, well, I guess you don't need that extra 23 billion next year. I can use that for roads and bridges. And believe me, you get a lot of response from something like that. The old program had no muscle. This one has muscle. It has teeth. And if it gets established and Congress, if the Senate and the House both continue to back it, the military doesn't exist without Congress. They pass all their funding every year. They have the power to cut the purse strings anywhere and anytime they want to. The president can't stop it. The military can't stop it. If you get people like Gillibrand and the rest of them, if they are on board and they control the funding on those committees, wow, they have leverage. I'm not saying it's 100% unstoppable, but the old program had no leverage.
Right.
This program, if it goes through as envisioned currently, they have serious leverage, and we are in a much better position than we've ever been in before, in my opinion.
I love to hear that. One more question for you, Jazz. You mentioned that this week was going to be kind of a big week for this bill.
Yeah.
Are we expecting them to be discussing this in Congress, or can you maybe expound on that?
Oh, yeah, we don't have a definite schedule, and there's nothing secret about that. They have to get the NDAA passed. It's a must-pass bill, and there's a deadline for that. It's probably not going to go into December. They are pushing. There are meetings going on right now, including the Gillibrand amendment. But let's all just dial back and remember, most of the members of Congress, the Gillibrand amendment is, unless they're directly involved in it, they don't care. There's hundreds of other things that have to get done. They're all being done right now. They're all being met on, they're being discussed. It's like, what's going to go up for a vote? What's not going to go up for a vote? But they have to get the NDAA passed. And if it doesn't get passed before Thanksgiving, I will be mildly surprised.
Wow.
But at the latest, it's going to be passed in the first week of December. The NDAA always passes. It's must-pass legislation. Our only challenge in our community right now is, does the Gillibrand language go through unaltered or only minorly altered and become part of the NDAA? And we discussed this in the last show. We talked about this.
Right.
And I think that's absolutely the case. Yeah, it's going to happen fast. I mean, you don't see headlines about this if you're watching CNN. Nobody talks about how the sausage is made. But this is one of those bills. They're out there grinding it out right now while we're talking. They're working till midnight. They have to get all these resolutions. They have to get all these amendments decided on. And they have to put it up for a vote. And they have to pass it. And the president has to sign it. So, yeah, I'm very excited. I think we may be... Go ahead.
Well, do you think that's a strategic choice that they made for putting this into the NDAA, a must-pass bill, as opposed to a separate bill, or is that the NDAA just kind of where it would naturally live as kind of part of the defense funding?
Well, the first one that went through last time was actually in the Intelligence Authorization Act. They both go hand in hand. They're parallel, but not exactly the same, because defense is the military. Intelligence is the intelligence agencies. They work together, they work hand in hand. Either one of them can do it. They're both must pass. Last time we got the resolution that delivered the June 25th amendment, that came from the Intelligence Authorization Act. It could have come that way again this time, but it has a lot more muscle because this time it came from the Defense Authorization Act, because the military budget that's untouchable. That's sacrosanct. Either one could have been the case. They would have worked. I think there was more of a seriousness that this time, instead of intelligence, it went to the Armed Forces Committee, because the Armed Forces Committee is, I hate to keep using the word, untouchable. It's going to be passed. There's nobody that's going to stop that. So if Gillibrand's amendment, and this is one thing I pointed out in my article, and I don't want to say that this show is really predictive of the future, but what we talked about initially was the House version was a lot more mild than the Gillibrand resolution.
Right.
And I was sitting there thinking, I'm guessing that the representative who wrote that is kind of wishing, wow, I sort of wish I had as much guts, as what Gillibrand did. And that's the guy that I pointed out in the article, who's now coming out and going, aliens, extraterrestrials. So I don't see him fighting, or anybody that represents him on the committee that integrates the two bills.
You're talking about Congressman Ruben Gallego.
Yeah, Gallego. He wrote it a bit mild, and then Gillibrand jumped in with a nuclear bomb.
Right.
And he's not going to come in and go, no, I want my version and I don't want hers. No, he went out and did an interview this week and was like, aliens, extraterrestrials.
Right.
He's not going to fight this. He's going to go with Gillibrands. So as far as I can see, there is virtually no risk at this point that language from Gillibrand, he might want to say, oh, well, I had this provision. Maybe we should add that in. And maybe that'll happen. It's mostly going to be Gillibrand's language. And I think that's going to go through. The only question then is what the funding is at the end. I think it's going to be pretty generous. But at this point, I'm going to double down on what we said the first time we talked about it. This is happening. It's already a done deal.
Yeah.
We've already got the House guy on board going out and doing interviews. Like, he doesn't say it out loud, but it's like, God, I wish I had said what Gillibrand said. They're both going to be on board. Nobody's opposing it. There's a ton of people that are like, well, we're here worried about the contract for the new nuclear site. What do you got? Aliens? All right, fine, whatever. It's $1 billion, And I think it's just going to roll through. And at this point, I think we're in really good shape.
Well, I can feel UFO Jane's in the show. I think she was saying this in regards to your earlier question, rather, but she said in the National Defense Bill, not the amendment, there's also a section on adverse anomalously health effects and treating those, which is true. And then we had a Laszlo Holyfield, excuse me. I gotta get some glasses. Laszlo Holyfield with a $5 donation. Bigelow more than likely lost money on the OSAP contract. Not really a question, but I guess he's just making that statement. I don't know. I would probably assume yes, that Bigelow probably did lose money on the OSAP contract, which is probably why he sold the ranch. I'm assuming he wasn't making money because it costs a lot of money to overhead expenses as far as staff, animals, new equipment, always having to be upgraded. So, I mean, to a billionaire, does that matter? Maybe it does if he's lost also other contracts and money down the road. Yeah, I mean, very possible. And then we had one more. Actually, we had two more. Oh, awesome. Haley Masbrook again. Dude, her mind is blown. We're blowing her mind, which is awesome. Thank you so much for the $5 donation. And John Music with a $10 donation. What do you guys think it will take to get the budget for a lot bigger even than this next year?
Who's that for?
Whoever wants to take. I mean, I guess I'll take it first. Let me repeat it again because I think I read it wrong. What do you guys think it will take to get the budget for this a lot bigger, even bigger than this next year? I guess they want a bigger budget. So somewhere down the road, I'm assuming John Music is looking for a bigger budget and what it would take to get a bigger budget. I mean, I think that the office would have to produce something definitive. That Mick West can't point at and figure out in 10 seconds. It's going to have to be something with multiple angles. It's going to have to be a video of some kind. Unfortunately, that's just what's going to have to be. I mean, I think if it's some science paper on UAPs, I don't care who writes it. No one's going to read it, and it's not going to be sexy and exciting. It's got to be something. I mean, do you guys agree with this, that it has to be a set of pictures that has been confirmed by either science or a government, or a set of videos? You guys know what I'm talking about here.
Go rather.
Yeah, I don't necessarily totally agree with that. I think that would totally make them have more funding. But the scope of this is like, the biological, physiological effects. If they were to find, patterns of people that are having radiation burns or cancer that are associated with these things, I think that would be just as good as a photo and securing some more funding to actually
but haven't we had that? I mean, we had a U.S. senator have hard time pulling medical records for a veteran and we had to get John McCain to do it, because he couldn't get anywhere because he had physiological effects from a UAP event in the 80s.
Right.
That's just one occasion, though. If we find, a pattern of that, then I think that's a much stronger case that this is not just a coincidence or something else going on, right?
Well, I think I would, if I was a betting man, which I'm not really, but if I was a betting man, I would say that there have to be other examples of it if it's the first thing mentioned in the amendment. You know what I mean? Like there has to be other examples of it. Jazz, what do you got?
I'm going to disagree with both of you.
Okay.
Not in principle. I think those are important things, and those are things the public would care about. That's not how the budget works, really. You know, when it comes down to the end of the day, if the budget's going to be increased later on, there's going to be a battle where they're battling over a bazillion different budget things, and every decision on the bottom line that's going to be coming up in the vote that's coming shortly, which will happen again next year and the year after and the year after, it's all going to come down to how much political impact it has. So I think the biggest driver, if there's going to be the same funding, more funding, less funding, a year from now, it depends on how much it's in the public discussion, how much it's in the zeitgeist.
Well, that's why I say like a video puts it in the zeitgeist real quick.
That might push it up further if people are being harmed and they can demonstrate that. That's going to tug on some heartstrings. But Congress works on a very cynical basis, I'm sorry to say. If it looks like, well, yeah, we want to investigate this and we've got somebody investigating it, so let's do that. But next year we're worried about the supply chain crisis, you know, or the next international crisis or things like that. And it's
or debris in space.
Debris in space, right?
Yeah.
And
that's a real thing.
But we also got these guys looking at UFOs. Well, if you don't make the case well enough that the people voting for the budget are convinced that they're going to put political capital on the line, is all I'm saying. It's like, well, you give them $1 billion this year. Yeah, we'd like to have $3 billion next year. But if there's a lot of stuff that's further up the chain that's going to affect their reelection chances, they might be like, no, the same billion's good, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's clear cut. Activists always want to think it's like, well, this is our cause. And, you know, if we go ahead and get our message out there, we're going to get the funding. Well, that works if it works to the benefit of the people who are running for reelection.
Right.
If it doesn't, then if you're lucky, you'll get what you got last time. So I'm a little more cautious about that.
Thank you, Akashi Chris, for the $5 super sticker dono. Truly appreciate it, my lady. Okay. Well, so there was when you say teeth in the bill, the thing that I really found fascinating, and this is something they highlighted with Ruben Gallego, is the one thing that he was talking about, was that this new office, the Anomaly Surveillance Resolution Office, ASRO for short, of course, because we love acronyms here in this community.
And we love ASRO now.
Yeah, and we love ASRO now. Well, assuming it gets signed into law and we get ASRO.
Right. And we probably will.
And we probably will, which is so let's start getting our ASRO patches going, Zetterstrom, because
we need an ASRO t-shirt with a dolphin.
Ooh, there you go. Or okay, now you got my mind racing. I got it. Okay, so the one thing that they discussed was this idea of legitimizing and cataloging these instances. Right. But the legitimization of this office, what this office is going to do is it will allow people who want to advance within Congress and within these intelligence communities. The problem is that if they're known as the quote unquote UFO guy or gal, they're, at least in the past, their career is probably not going to advance the way they want it. They're only going to peak out so far. Whereas this office, what it does, one of the things that it does is it allows the ability for the people who are in the office to have discussions and interactions with people of Congress and the Senate, which legitimizes the office. It legitimizes your position because you have access to senators and congressmen now. And you have a lot of access, is my understanding, is what this office is going to do. So with that access comes power, comes respect with what you're doing, and becomes promotions. Because if you can take those budgets and you can provide the American people with some substantially great information and their representatives to then decipher that to their voters, and that gets them reelected, you're going to climb that political ladder like a firework. And that is what I found super interesting about what we're talking about now, because now it's not just some task force in like the bowels of the Pentagon or the Defense Department that only 2 people work at and have a shoestring budget. This is going to be a legitimate office in a place that people can reach and interact and have conversations with lawmakers in very powerful committees. So, I'm curious to know what your thoughts on that are, Jazz.
Well, that's definitely a factor. But again, I hate to be the person that has to come and like toss cold water on things.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
But
why you're here, Jazz.
We love you for it, Jazz.
You're the Dolphin Emperor.
The reality is that what you're saying is absolutely true. But as time goes on, it's a question of, what is the value, not to how much disclosure we're getting, not how much information is being put out. It's what does it do to the political careers of the people who are supporting this? If it's modicum, if it's a baseline thing and it's like, okay, you're doing what you said you were going to do, then that's okay. You stay in that position. There's going to be jockeying. It's like, who's going to be delivering what the voters want? Because in the end, as far as politicians go, this is not about aliens. It's not about extraterrestrials. It's not about UFOs. It's not about any of that. It's about power. It's about who controls the flow of information, right? I realize how cynical that sounds, and I apologize, but that's the reality.
Right.
But
that is a powerful flow of information. Let's just assume for a second that this office is successful, and
Sure.
now that the information they possess within this office is valuable to a lawmaker because it's more honesty, it's more transparency. It's something that I think, at least from what we've seen in the last year, with Rubio and Gallego, and now Gillibrand, and she hasn't spoken publicly on it, but even
she will.
Avril Haines, someone definitely will, because you can't put an amendment like that. I mean, especially once it gets voted on, someone's going to have to talk about it. Once it gets passes, there's going to have to be a statement, and I think that's when all the 3-letter alphabet nationwide networks are going to jump on it, because right now it's just a proposed amendment. But if that amendment passes the way it's worded, and they have to make a comment on it, especially Kirsten Gillibrand. She wrote the amendment, so she has to comment on it if it passes. But like this idea of them having valuable information, say in 2 years from now, that is power. No, wouldn't that be valuable politically speaking?
It's
because we haven't seen it hurt anybody. Like when these senators and congressmen, and now these amendments are being written, I don't think they're losing followers or interest in their political careers. Like I'm going to Senator Gillibrand's website and I'm looking at the other committees that she's on, and I try to find out what she's all about. Like, what kind of politician is she? I mean, that's worth something. I think I don't think it's going to be, I don't see a political hit job anymore on this topic like they did with it wasn't Ralph Nader, who was the Democratic nominee a few years back, Dennis Kucinich, who had a UFO. They asked him about UFOs in a national debate, and after that moment he absolutely lost everything. Like any juice that he had, I think he was running third or fourth in the polls at the time it completely went out the window because then he was labeled a schmuck and a whack job. So, but I think if you tried to pull that today, I don't think it's going to work as it did in the early 2000s, especially or the 90s. I mean, is that fair? To fight back a little bit on your cynicism?
Kucinish's fall was
there was a lot of other things, but
because I covered that campaign extensively, there was a lot more than that.
But wouldn't you say that was the moment though where his campaign was like, okay, this is a joke?
No, I thought it was part of it.
Yeah.
I hate to be the Debbie Downer person.
No,
politics is way more cynical than most of us in the ufology community would like to think. We would like to think that if you are marching forward with a banner over your head, and this is really important, ending UAP secrecy, answering the great questions of the universe, everybody that's on our side already will say, absolutely, and that's the thing. It's still really kind of small segment of the population. There's a lot of people that have other concerns that they're worried about. And to answer you, I think 2 years from now, if whether or not ASRO does what it set out to do or doesn't, but it's producing good results, if the next topic, I mean, look how nobody was cared about pandemics before 2 years ago. And now it's everything. And look how people were not really concerned about immigration, illegal immigration, and enforcing immigration. And then a huge border crisis. And it becomes everything. And 2 years later, it's like, oh, that's all right, right? These things shift with the tides. If you're asking me if I think that 3 years from now, the dominant conversation is going to be about, is the replacement for the UAP task force doing enough to find out about the aliens? Well, if somebody does a good enough job of selling that, and everybody gets as concerned as we are about answering these very deep, difficult questions, and very important questions, in my opinion, well, then, yeah, that's going to be a huge thing. If they've all moved on to figure out no, we have to have a fight over whether or not filtered cigarettes are more cancerous than other ones. And if you smoke at the same, I could come up with any number of things. Those could be more important things. And the stuff we're sitting here fighting about, that might fall not on the back page, but off the front page. And the politicians that we're talking about who have to go and win votes, how much effort are they going to put into this? That's my concern. I think we might lose some of the support and some of the effort from the people that are currently jumping on board and trying to help us. If it looks like the political tides are not even turning against them, Luis, if it looks like the political tides are like, well, that was nice you did that. You set up this ASRO. But now we've got these other 5 new things that we got to worry about. I think it could lose a lot of steam. And that's one of my concerns that I worry about.
Okay, well then go for it, rather.
Well, yeah, I had kind of a different question. We're talking about the political careers. What about the careers of the people that are actually going to be staffing the ASRO office? Do they get any choice, or do people apply to that internally, or are they all just kind of assigned to that? And if you're like a college graduate trying to figure out how to be involved in this, like how could you try to advance your career and be a part of that office? Because it sounds like that would be a very exciting place to be.
I think a lot of people would be excited with that. If you're in the military, you don't get a lot of choice. If you're coming from one of the military offices, if they say you're going here, you're going here. If you're on the policy side of it, there'll be openings that people can apply for. And I think the people who will apply and will get placed are people who will be excited about it. So I don't know, listening to the experience of Lou Elizondo, I have a lot of hope. I think Ezra is going to be an exciting place to work, and there's going to be a lot of people in the military if they get assigned. Maybe not all of them will be thrilled, particularly if they come from the Air Force, because the Air Force hates talking about this. You know, they're going to be there, but the people from the intelligence community, from the DoD, if they get assigned, if they get offered that, they'll have the opportunity to apply, and the people who apply, I believe, are going to be excited about it. And yeah, I I don't want anybody to take my position on this show to feel like I'm saying, oh, well, this is lost cause. It's all going to just be bullshit.
I think
It's not.
I don't think
it's gonna
anybody's
be
getting that vibe
very
at all.
good. But
I think
in answer to Rather's question, just to finish,
yeah.
I think we're going to get the best people in almost all cases that are really interested in working on this, and there's great opportunities ahead of us. That's my take.
Well, I think it's just a pessimistic versus optimistic sort of viewpoint. I don't mean that in any disrespect. I think you look at this and you say to yourself, okay, it's the glass is half empty though, and this could go wrong.
Yeah.
And I look at this and I'm like, yeah, that glass is half full. And I see how this could go really right. Real quick, Artisan Tony, the point of being elected is to serve and not leave. Not become a lifer and want to advance. What happened to the libertarians? And then we'll get to Bottled Water's question here in a second. But here's the thing. If this office, say, produces a 23-minute video that absolutely is a game changer and makes a person, say, like Elon Musk go, oh, wait a second, there's a different kind of propulsion system out there. I want to know the physics of it. And I want to know how much you guys know about the physics of it, because you clearly have more answers. I think something like that happens, an event like that, say, you might get an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos, especially if they're spending these billions and billions of their own dollars to send these rockets up, and they're looking at this video that shows the 5 observables, that is undeniable, that science looks at and says, holy cow, this is something we absolutely have to pay attention to right now. I think this is going to be the most exciting office in the world to work in. And then that power, I think, is going to be, and maybe dangerous, depending. Like, I can see how an office like this could really manipulate who gets voted, who doesn't. Like, if you don't have a pro UAP platform when you run, or if you're in current office, this you're going to want to look to this office for support when you campaign. I think if we get something along those lines, which it's possible. What are you gonna say, Rather?
Well, yeah, I guess I don't really. It's not really a bipartisan or a partisan issue right now, right? So there's no one really saying. I would agree with you if there were people that saying I don't want to fund this, and then it comes out to yield big results. But I think that if this bipartisan office gets created, I don't, and they have results, I don't think that's going to be really. I don't think Kristen Gillibrand is going to be able to really claim that as her. Reaching UFOs. I don't see it as that big of a political game.
You don't see Kristen Gillibrand maybe say when she runs for president to tell the world, I'm the one who wrote that amendment. I'm the one who brought you UAP truth.
Sure.
I'm the one who changed the conversation. I'm the one who's transparent. I'm the one who's here to tell you the truth.
Sure.
My opponent is not.
Well, I can see that, but my opponent is not. I think is a bigger grab, right? Because her opponent probably was, unless he or she was fighting against the office.
Right. What, yeah. Jazz? Jazz is laughing. He's like, you idiots are arguing about the most dumb stuff because
we don't
none
know.
of that. We're being passionate activists, and we're thinking of the possibilities here, Jazz. But why are you laughing? Tell us.
I'm not trying to be insulting. Kristen Gillibrand already ran for president. For those of you,
fair,
but
she would have won. She did it earlier.
But if she had a 23-minute video under her belt, she might get a little further.
And now I'm talking to people who focus on UAP, who focus on UFOs, who focus on this as their major issue. And I'm one of those people. I'm in there with you. You know what? Kirsten Gillibrand running for president, if she had come out at that time and said, oh, by the way, I'm totally into UAP exposure.
No,
guess
it would
what?
have been the end of her
She
career.
would have still had 3% support.
Right.
Okay. That wasn't going to change anything.
You don't think so?
Okay. That's not how politics works. Sorry, guys. You know, it's
What
just
year
not.
did she run for president, though?
Last time, she was in the Democratic primary.
I'm sorry, I forgot there was 43 people in the Democratic primary.
Tell me, Luis. Yeah. I don't want to make assumptions about anybody's associations, but I'm going to make an assumption. Are you, in fact, either registered or leaning towards being a Democrat?
No, I'm actually registered as a Republican.
Oh, so you and me both, although I'm not a Republican and I haven't been for 20 years.
Yeah, neither am I. I'm more progressive.
Those of you
now.
out there who know about Democrats, there's a lot of people who didn't even know that Kirsten Gillibrand was running for president last time because she got no support. And you know what? Her coming out and going, yeah, but I'm in favor of UAP secrecy. That wasn't going to change.
Well, but let me ask you this, though, Jazz. Again, I'm just saying post-office, post-huge revelation, you don't think that wins her some political favor or popularity?
Some.
Like the senator who came out, who set up the office that gave us transparency on the UAP discussion. That only wins you don't think her percentage goes up if she ran for president, say? And I'm using president as like the most extreme scenario. Obviously, that's probably out of her league. I don't know. I don't know a lot about Gillibrand's political leanings. Obviously, I've completely forgot she was running for president. But you don't think that at least anchors her in that chair that she sits in for a lot longer than maybe she would have been?
Some.
Okay.
I'll say this.
No, I've talked so much tonight.
That's
ahead,
okay.
Brother.
What were you
I was going to say, Al Gore invented the internet, and that didn't give him any accolades.
I don't know if Al Gore invented the internet, though.
I want everybody to realize Rather's making a joke that Rather and I got.
Yeah.
But Al Gore did not invent the internet.
Yeah. So. He does get that praise, though. I guess because what did he do? He wrote bills that made the internet possible to exist.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The original DARPA.
Big supporter, right. Yeah, DARPA. Yep.
Bottled water.
I don't know, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'd love to have an answer that would say that if Kirsten Gillibrand was the savior of UFO Twitter, that suddenly she was a more viable candidate and that would advance her career. It would advance her career with me. And I'm going to go ahead and do a bit of disclosure. As part of the ongoing big phone home thing, in the past week, I called and I talked to Gillibrand's office. And I said, hey, I'm not a Republican. I haven't been for 20 years. But I'm a member of a third-party, very conservative group that would generally never vote for a Democrat. And I called and talked to them and said, if she gets this amendment through, I'm going to vote for her. And I will go out and publicly endorse her because this is the most important thing to me. That's how serious I take it. Right. But I'm in a minority. Tiny minority. Most people
now you are
about that.
That's what I'm saying. Today you are 100% correct. But again, I'm just speculating. I'm just thinking of the best case scenario.
Sure.
If we find out that aliens are freaking real, and she's the person responsible for the amendment that made that a transparent thing, I think she's making speeches like in Independence Day, you know, and she might
100%. 100% if we get that.
Right.
But
That's
how
what I'm
long
saying.
does it take us to get that is my question.
Right. No,
If
that's
we're ever
fair.
going to get it.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know,
but
I think she's asking very reasonable questions.
Yeah.
Very scientifically reasonable questions.
Well, but the reason why I say that is because you say this bill has teeth. If it goes through, it's got teeth. It's got legitimate power that could get legitimate answers. And I think the first year is going to be very, I won't say very quiet, but it's going to be quiet. I think year 2 and 3 is going to get a lot more interesting because then they're going to start taking away budgets. And then people are going to say, hey, we need our budget back. Okay, great. Well, if you want your budget back, then give us the damn information we're asking you for. And then boom, you get the information that you've been asking for. And then you can determine, okay, what is appropriate for the public to know, and what needs to be put in a confidential report, and then the ball moves forward. But if that is something huge that confirms this as a reality, 100%, again, convincing Mick West and convincing Neil deGrasse Tyson types that this is real, I think that wins you a lot of political juice, because now that one voter issue is not just a minority of people. It's going to grow significantly.
I hope you're right.
I
really do.
I got him there. But no, I agree. I understand what you're saying.
We're on the same page.
We have to wait
and see.
We're on the same page. Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just saying that it would take a lot to deliver that in political terms, to the point where it wasn't just, oh, I have a member of the Senate from New York who wants to know the answers about these strange sightings, to get from there to, oh, the aliens are here and we have to do something about it. We have a pretty big bridge to walk over.
That is a huge bridge to walk over. But again, if we're talking about within this next week, we're going to have senators and congressmen saying extraterrestrial at the very least, possibly
and they will.
Alien, and they will, and we're getting there. I don't think it's that huge a leap. If this office is powerful and has as much teeth as we're assuming it's going to have, I think it moves the ball downfield significantly, because again, if we get cases of physiological
totally agree
deaths,
with Luis on that.
It could be. We have to wait and see. We have to be patient. It's a process, not an event. But eventually, we're going to get something along the lines that shifts the paradigm for the average, as you call them. What do you call them, Jazz? Regulars or normies? Normies. You call them normies.
The normies, yes.
Right.
I completely agree with everything Luis just said. I'm just not as much of an optimist to say that it's a total game changer and everybody in the United States government is going to turn around and go, oh, well, this is now the defining, thing that we're all going to talk about. So I don't see that yet. I do think there's room for a lot of positive movement. And I wrote about that today, and I hope that's true. But I'm sorry, I'm too old to be.
No, that's fair.
That much of an optimist
look,
to go, this is a done deal. We're all set. We're getting the aliens,
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
Go for it, rather.
Yeah, well, I mean, whether the glass is half empty or half full, it's been empty for the last 40 years. So, we're moving in the right direction.
Right. I agree. And I think it's going to eventually fill up. I don't think the glass is going down. I think it's going up, the water. Speaking of water, Jazz, $10 donation for bottled water. I've got a question for you. Jazz, can you correct me? But I think, or Jazz can correct me, but I think it would mostly be staffed with contractors with a few GS employees and maybe 4 green suitors.
I assume he's talking about Azro.
Yes,
I would assume so.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, bottled water. I think there will be some contractors involved. I don't think that the people that are going to still be responding to Susan Goff and everybody else until if and when somebody clamps down on them. I don't think they're going to have that much power. I think there's going to be people that are involved who get a voice. Totally agree with that. We have not beaten down the people that are trying to shut down this conversation. We're not even close. Susan Goff is still one of the most powerful people in the country in terms of discussing UAP reality. She definitely is. The people she reports to, and we have a lot of the names of those people that we don't write about all the time. Those people are still in charge. Nothing has changed. It's starting to change, but no, that's not happening immediately. It may still happen. I'm very hopeful it will happen. Talk to John Greenwald. He has documents he hasn't even published yet, about the people who control these decisions that are not so much related in fact, as opposed to being related to, what's the best way to put it? Public perception, and they try to control public perception, right? I don't think this story is anywhere near played out. That's my whole point I'm trying to make. Right. I think this week has had some great developments. I'm very encouraged. There's a lot of good things going on, but the war isn't over, folks.
No, we got a
I'm
long.
sorry.
No, that's for sure. And
There's
I
a
think
long way to go.
That's where I 100% agree with you. This is nowhere near over. We still have to make calls. We still have to say thank you. We still have to make demands. I mean, we're going to see what this Azro again. We're going to know June. What was it? June 26th when the report came out.
25th.
We're going to know June 25th what this Azro office is going to be all about. We got a date for it, again, if this passes into law as it's written, we'll have an office by June 25th. And then we can really, I'm curious to know how how that office is going to interact with the public. Will it have a spokesperson? If it gets $1 billion budget, how big of a staff do you think they'll have there? If it's, you get $1 billion for 2 years, $500 million each year, and then let's see where we're at. And then we'll just, depending on who's in office, what's going on politically, it can maybe, get a bigger budget down the road. But I mean, what do you foresee in that? And just to answer Artisan Tony here, I am a fanboy of Gillibrand right now. I think this amendment is so important. I think historically speaking, and I could be totally wrong on this, and we're not a prediction show. This is not what we normally do. But I truly believe this amendment, if it passes as written and maybe even gets a couple more goodies added to it, who knows? Let's see what they debate on the floor. But I think this is going to be something that when a UAP college course is offered at a major university, this is going to be an amendment that is talked about from the historical perspective of that category of class. And I think eventually we're going to get there where you've got an MIT and you've got now a major, you can major in UAP where it actually makes UAPs a legitimate field. That's way down the road, but I think this amendment is going to be the thing that really sets everything into motion personally. And I could be totally wrong, but that's why I'm excited over her. That's why I immediately reached out to her and her staff and said, thank you. We love the amendment. Thank you. And again, like, it got me looking at her political platforms and the things that I don't agree with her politically on a lot of stuff, but I can tell you, if I got in a room with her and we sat down for 3 hours and the first 2 hours is nothing but UAP talk, that third hour, I feel like I'm going to find a lot more common ground with her politically speaking. We'll see. And maybe even stuff outside of politics that maybe I had a different opinion on, she could sort of help me see in a different way. I think that would happen. And that's just what I love about the topic. It's what gets me passionate. So yes, I'm a fanboy of Kirsten Gillibrand. Rather, what were you going to say?
You and me both.
If I was with 3 hours, and I did the 2 hours talking with UFOs to Kristen Gillibrand. I don't know if I could revert back to normal conversation for that third hour.
That's fair. That's
still
fair.
talking about
I mean,
UFOs.
you don't have to. You can still talk about UFOs. I am curious to know though what hit her level of interest in this topic is, because this is, if I'm not mistaken, the first time I've ever heard her talk about it ever. And this to be the first thing that you put on the table, I am curious to. I would love to see her bookshelf at home to see how many of UAP books she has.
Yeah, or what intern and who was involved in the wording of all this bill. I'd be very interested in the backstory.
Yeah, that too, or because I heard Jazz laughing, and I think maybe I know why. She's not into this shit at all, and she just had somebody write it, based off of a meeting maybe she had with, say, a Christopher Mellon or somebody along those lines, where it's like, hey, this amendment needs teeth. This is how you do it. If you want, I'll write it for you, and you're more than welcome to review it. And then boom, it's an amendment. Let's see what happens. This is like, let's see, let's throw it out there and see what sticks, kind of thing. Am I crazy there, Jazz? Am I
yeah, you're totally crazy. Wow, this is going into a weird place. I didn't think that discussion was going to go into.
Really? Is it going into that weird a place?
It's a totally weird place because
Why?
I've been following Kirsten Gillibrand.
Well, she's in your state, so from a political perspective. Yep, you're good. Let me mute your mic. I'll mute your mic. There you go. Woo. All right.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
No, I've been following her. No, I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry.
Bless you.
Wow, I wanted to get this out.
I blame Jane.
I blame Jane.
I blame Jane too.
Yeah.
Kirsten Gillibrand was not anybody who was involved in this. Okay.
Right.
She was not in this fight. And I've been following her a long time. She's one of my senators.
Right.
I had a long conversation with her office this week. You know what? This isn't politics for her. It really isn't. She got invited and sent to a whole bunch of confidential briefings. She was in on all the classified stuff.
Yeah.
And then she came out of the classified stuff having never spoken about this before in any fashion. I have searched. I have asked her aides. She's never spoken about UAP, ever.
Yeah.
And now here we are. You know what happened? She went to a bunch of briefings and she saw some shit that she was like, oh my God. And we've had a bunch of other people in Congress who have gone and been put into classified briefings. And they were like, what the heck is this? I honestly believe she's taking it seriously. I honestly believe she's seen things that she's just like, we got to get this under control. I am 100% behind Kirsten Gillibrand. I think she has gone and seen things that nobody should have to see. Because you guys, we've done shows before. I don't want to go into the whole experiencer thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen shit that nobody should see. And it's like, that's not right. There's something really messed up going on here in terms of what we typically understand. And I think Kirsten Gillibrand has actually seen things like that. She's been shown that in classified briefings. And I honestly do believe that she is taking action from her office saying, this is messed up and we need to look into this. I think that's what she's doing. I may turn out to be wrong, but when you see this weird crap, you turn around and you're like, okay, we should probably do something about this. And I'm not judging her. I'm not sitting going, oh, I'm going to judge Kirsten Gillibrand on, what bill are you going to endorse? You're not going to endorse. I think he's actually interested. And I think if she does her good job, there's going to be a lot of other people in Congress who will become interested because she's going to be going, dudes, look at this. What the hell is this? Right? And if that's what she's doing, by the way, folks, America, left, right, I'm on her side. Go figure out what the hell this is. If we can end the show just on that much, I'm happy with it because I think she's doing something good. And I think a lot of people can get behind that. We're not to the finish line, but I think it's a good start.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Jazz, we've kept you here half hour longer than we said we would. So on that note, would you like to say goodnight to the people? Or you can stick around. It's up to you.
No, I'm good. I'll take off.
Okay.
No, I appreciate being invited. It's been a long week for me, and you guys know I got some personal stuff going on and work stuff. But I thought this was important enough. I wanted to come do it, and I think we're in for some good stuff. Really,
Yeah.
I don't know how it ends, but I think we're making a lot of progress towards UAP. Exposure, just getting more transparency from the government, which is really all I want. It's the reason I support you guys because you're always working towards that. And I think there's good things happening. So everybody, be of good cheer. That's all I would say.
Yeah. All right, Jazz Shaw, you heard it here, guys. I mean, every time I fly a little too close to the sun, Jazz Shaw likes to pull me back to earth a little bit, and I appreciate that. So, Jazz, I can't thank you enough, sir. And if I didn't get to say it on Veterans Day, happy belated Veterans Day. We'll see you
and
soon.
by the way, happy Tic Tac Day to everyone.
Happy Tic Tac Day.
Even though it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday was Tic Tac Day. Happy Tic Tac Day to everyone.
Yeah, and if you're curious where you can find that shirt that Jazz is wearing, check out the link below. We've got a merch store, and you can buy your very own Tic Tac shirt in multitude of colors. Thank you, Jazz.
The mug.
Yeah, and the mug. Don't forget the mug, Jazz. I love you, man. All right, sir. We'll see you soon. Have a good night. Send our love to your wife as well.
Yep.
Jazz Shaw, man. He never
disappointed. I was wondering whether my proverbial glass was half full or half empty during that entire conversation. But I think of that last point Jazz made, it kind of filled that glass up. It's looking pretty full right now.
Right. I mean, I think he's right down the middle, and it's a wait and see thing. We have to have facts before we can start making assumptions. I just love going to the fun place of what this could be. Right. And maybe I'm thinking, I mean, he's got a lot more world experience in dealing with real politicians.
Well, yeah, he's lived in this world for a while.
He's lived in this world for a long time. He went back to that saying. He said it a couple times. This is how the sausage is made. He knows how the sausage is made. He can practically make it himself. So, when he talks about the political ramifications of this discussion and where it's going, you have to listen to him. And that's what I love about him and why he's so valuable to the show and what we're doing here, because he gives us the actual political perspectives and the motivations. And I love that he's just like, she saw something, she doesn't have any books on the shelf. She was in the intelligence briefing. She gets things way better than the books on the shelf, but I just think of the thing that I think of is Hillary Clinton getting that picture taken with, I can't remember which book, but it was a UAP book, a UFO book, very popular one. And I think of that, is she interested in this now? Maybe is she reading up on it? And if so, where? And I'm curious to know where she sits on it.
Yeah, the best place to read up on it would be those classified briefings.
I mean, right? Yeah, that's
wish we could all do that.
I wish we could all do that, or at least a version of them. And thanks to her amendment, we will get that. If it passes the way it's written, which again, you heard Jazz, the man who knows how the sausage is made. nobody's gonna die on the Hill for this, to fight this. This looks like it's gonna pass, and you heard him. It could pass Thanksgiving week, which is next week, or the first week of December. And by the way, speaking of next week, I don't know if I told you this, rather, but we're not doing shows Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we're gonna take those days off next week, but we're gonna be back on Friday with a KGRA show. That'll be, of course, very fun. And then I think we're also going to be taking off the last 2 weeks of December. What do you think about that, rather?
I won't know what to do with myself, but I'll find something.
I won't know either. I was telling Michael, I was like, I'm a maniac. I'll do every day. I don't care what day it is. I'll do it. But we got to get the guys some rest here, because we got a new year coming, and I think it's going to be a very interesting year.
I agree. Yeah, it's exciting times we're living in.
Indeed. We need to send Rather undercover inside the White House to get the real scoop. You think Rather?
I don't think that. Do you think they give a Rather be squidding a press credential?
Well, I can tell you this: they definitely have to do.
I
was going to say they're definitely going to have to do a background check, and I don't know if Rather's going to be in on that. Because what would be? We were talking about this the other day. I don't know if it was with you, Rather. Rather could be a infiltrated spy from some intelligence agency. We would have no clue. And just to get the inside scoop to pass the information we discuss here, what the people are talking about, the whole 168 people that are here, but like what we're talking about, like and passing it up the chain. And I thought to myself, well, would that suck? That would actually be pretty awesome. That was my show that got infiltrated by a disinformation agent.
Well, I'll always cite my sources, so you don't need to trust me, because I'll bring the receipts.
There you go. You bring the receipts. Okay. Well, we could do one of two things. Rather, we can listen to Representative Gallego speak about what's going down and sort of his perspective on what these objects are, which I thought was really fascinating. Or we can listen to Michio Kaku, because there's a new Michio Kaku clip.
I haven't heard the congressman. I know we probably are going to have some disagreements on the Michio Kaku clip. So I'll push it back to you.
I don't know if we are going to have as many disagreements as you think. Okay, well, how about this? We won't talk about it, but we won't play it, because I think everybody's seen Kaku. They might not have seen the Representative Gallego, which I think is a little bit more of an important discussion. But when I was listening to talking, I'm a huge Michio Kaku lover. And the thing that sort of struck me, I was like, when he was like, we now have the data, we now have the science, we have these videos, mountains of videos. And I thought to myself, I don't think he's analyzed those videos.
Yeah. He's definitely overselling the amount of not credibility, but what those videos show.
It sounds that way, at least. Again, maybe Michio Kaku has friends in high places that have sent him things that he shouldn't have seen. That happens when those kind, I don't want to call him famous, but he is famous. He's world renowned. Now, a lot of people know who he is. And a lot of people, like if I was the guy who had the information and I somehow could rub elbows with Michio, and I'd be like, hey Kaku, check this out. This is a video from a DHS plane in 20. Listen to what the pilot said. No one's ever seen this, I might do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible,
highly
but
unlikely.
Pretty unlikely, right?
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
But then again, what's changed the thinking of, say, like an Eric Weinstein?
Yeah, and I'm not totally familiar with the statement that he said, but I don't think that he's said quite what Michio Kaku has said.
No, but
right?
I think what he did is he apologized and reversed course on his thoughts about the topic, and apologized to the UFO community, basically saying, hey, I got this wrong. Be a little more open-minded about it.
I think that if you just honestly read the UAP task force report, you kind of have to come away with those conclusions that, this is a topic worth investigating, and there is a there, as you say. But that's a long ways from saying that we have mountains of videos of evidence of things that we can't explain. You know,
I wonder if
we don't have any of that so far.
But we heard they do.
Yeah,
right?
that's
like we've heard. I mean, look, if we're assuming that the 3 videos, Go Fast, Gimbal, and Tic Tac, are just and we've been told this, that's nothing compared to the data that we've had. Maybe he's actually heard Lua Elizondo speak to this, or Christopher Mellon speak to this. That I don't put past him. I feel like he's definitely heard these high-level officials, and I bet you he's heard, like, it wouldn't shock me if a Michio Kaku, say, watches Lex Fridman talk to David Fravor or Alex Dietrich and or Joe Rogan and listen to their stories in a long form format and walk away going, whoa, okay, there's mountains of data. You know, if this is just the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure, I think maybe that's what he's referring to. But at the same time, I was like, you haven't seen mountains of data, man.
Yeah. And, you know, honestly, I'm getting a little bit tired of all the claims of mountains of evidence that we can't see, right? Like,
yeah,
it's been, you know, at least a year now where we've, you know, been hearing of the 27-minute video, and, you know, now there's claims of photos up close and occupants inside craft, and it's almost starting to be to the point where the more I hear about those things and don't see it, kind of the less credible I take those, and kind of the more grains of salt I'm eating when I hear these stories.
Well, it all has to be grains of salt, right? Like we're not here to believe anything. We're here to we want the info, we want the data. You know, but I think, again, this amendment, this new office, if we get that 23-minute video or the 24-minute video, and it seems like there is a coordination of how this data is released and when. You know, you've got the director of national intelligence saying that there is a possibility of this being extraterrestrial in nature. You know, like that option is now on the table, and that's coming out of the mouth of the director of national intelligence. Maybe we start to get those things. And that's what I was trying to say to Jazz, like, we got to wait, because if we do get that 23-minute video, then what are you going to say, rather?
Well, yeah, no, that's a great point. Because, you know, now with this, if this passes, if ASRO passes, and they have a mandate to look, you know, back in time before 2004, then if those evidence does exist, they should be able to get it, right? And in 128 days, when they do the report, that'll be kind of the rubber meeting the road, and we'll be able to, you know, maybe it'll be in the classified version, but I would hope that we'd at least get some indication that there are these videos in the classified report, or that they exist. You know, if we get a report and they say, you know, we still don't have any concrete evidence, then it starts to beg the question of, did these things ever exist? What were these things that people are referencing?
Well, I think you and I and probably a lot of people in this community are going to be frustrated for the next 2, or have those moments of frustration, because in 180 days, there's no report coming. That's when the office opens. That's the first day, you know? So a year from that opening day, I think, is when things are going to that's when the rubber's going to meet the road, because the budget will be established. The protocol for that office will be established. The proper memos have been sent to make sure that all of these intelligence agencies knows that there's a new kid on the block, and you better start cooperating or look to get your budget slashed by the two most powerful committees within the Senate and Congress. Be careful. I think that's why I keep saying 2023, because I think that's when we're going to get more unclassified stuff. We're going to start having a real open and honest dialogue about this phenomenon. And that, for me, massive. That's a huge step for maybe people in the audience or people in the community. Not good enough. Quit telling me about the videos. Quit telling me about this. I want to see it. Give it to me now. It's not going to happen that way. You have to start thinking of this in a little bit longer term thing. Like, there's a plan here. And You got Lou Elizondo's book coming out next year. This ASRO office is going to be established. I think that's going to really kick off sort of the fourth gear effect, and then we can get into fifth, sixth, seventh, and however many gears this car has, or semi truck, whatever it is.
Yeah, I wonder if, ASRO does start knocking on doors and finding and collecting evidence from different parts of the government. I wonder if, before they get a chance to compile their evidence and release it to the Congress and potentially us, if there's going to be a influx of leaks as these elements in the government kind of try to get ahead of the story.
I think to answer that question,
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Do you have an opinion on that?
John Greenwald hates leaks. He hates leaks, and I understand why. But I think leaks are healthy. Leaks are a healthy part of our government. They happen all the time. I think leaks are necessary to get information, or at least people going, whoa, what is that? And then that gets you the Pentagon Papers, or that gets you a commission report on something that the people really want to know answers to. I think if there was a group of people, if 1 million people called Congress tomorrow and asked President Biden or their Congress members, hey, we want to know about JFK. We want you to unclassify those files, because this is something, they've been wanting since he got shot. And for whatever reason, they keep putting it off and keep putting off and keep putting off. The reason why they're putting it off is because there's no pressure to really release those things. Nobody's calling, nobody's writing letters, nobody's doing a big Kennedy home or big phone home for John F. Kennedy. Nobody's doing that. They're just complaining in their own circles and talking about it on their message boards, but they're not actually activating themselves with their local and state reps. And that's why the president, especially if the information in that classified briefing is terrible, and it actually does reveal nefarious things that either our government did or was involved with, holy cow. But they're not going to do that unless people are demanding it. It's the same thing with this. We have to keep on our toes. And like Jazz said, we've just begun. We've just begun. And I know that might be frustrating. Preston Paget is like, quit covering up for their lies. He wrote something along those lines in this. I'm not covering up for their lies. I'm looking at the political change takes time. It takes time. And you want every single person that I've spoken to, from Ted Rowe to, Lee Spiegel, and to, all of these guys and ladies who were there for Blue Book and who were there for Grudge and Roswell, with an exception of a few here and there, are all admitting this is different. This is substantially different. It feels different. The political atmosphere is different. The world is different with the technological advances that we've had, where we can communicate and mobilize faster than we ever have in the human history. It's when Ted Rowe, Ted Rowe was like, I had a conversation with him after the big phone home, and he's like, you're wasting your time. You're never going to get anything out of these guys. They lie over and over and over and over again, and they're going to do it again. And you have every right to believe that. Every right in the world, because it's a pattern. We've seen the pattern. But when Ted Rowe was invited to the Aeronautical Advancement Safety Protocol Conference, I can't remember the name of it, another long acronym, when he was invited to that to speak about the cases that he's collected and reported on with NARCAP, even he had to turn around and go, Lou, you're right. This is different. This is different. And it got him, Ted Rowe, man, God, if you guys could have heard the conversation Ted Rowe and I had, he was pissed. Just like a lot of people who've been following this are pissed. They want the answers now because they know. they know, What do you got?
I mean, can you imagine someone like Lee Spiegel, who's been on this issue since the 60s or the 70s, dealing with asking the same questions, knocking on government's doors for decades after decades, and just giving silence and nothing in response, and still continuing to have interest and moving the story along. And then, now we're actually seeing, compared to the completely flat ball not moving, it's racing downhill now. We're getting tremendous movement.
I feel like it's not fair to compare. I don't know what the budget for Project Blue Book was, but it wasn't $1 billion, and it wasn't the equivalent of 1950 to $1 billion in 2021. I promise you that. Whatever the budget for Blue Book was not this. I think Blue Book had 10 to 15 people working on it at most. A group of scientists, Air Force officials, and then they basically wrote it, and then it got filtered multiple times until it had a version of it where they're like, okay, now we can give this to the American people. It was like the same thing. It was like ATIP, that Blue Book and Grudge.
Yeah, and my historical UFOlogy isn't as good as my other aspects of the science stuff, but Blue Book was kind of the purpose of that was to explain away a lot of encounters. Correct. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And yes. I really don't get that impression at all currently.
That's not what it was sold as. It wasn't sold as we're here to just debunk this. But as soon as the project started, it was clear that that's why it was created, to debunk it, deflect, and just not answer the question and put the onus on other parts of the government or whatever they did. Swamp gas. They put all these things out in the public that just pissed people off, didn't answer any questions, and then kind of just let it go and then said, hey, let's see what happens. And I don't think anybody called, anybody, solicited their governors. There was no internet. There was no way to quickly thank your senator. Hey, thanks for writing that amendment. Thank you. Like, holy cow, amazing. You would actually have to handwrite them something, not an email, like write something, like a stamp and mail it to them. Like, it's different, man. We're in a different world. Laszlo Holyfield with a $5 chip are particularly motivated how the deep state controls politicians. That's fair.
Laszlo is big on these leaks.
I think so. I mean, he didn't say deep state, did he? Or did I put that in there? Was that?
No,
did he have two? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Okay. How the deep state? I don't subscribe to this idea of deep state. I think there are elements of the government. I think money is what motivates politicians. 75-80% of their day is making phone calls, getting money. And I think corporations now are the same as a voter. They get this and they can just donate. It's an open faucet of money. Whoever's got the most money is going to influence whatever that senator or congressman says. I think that's the thing that really controls it. The reason we don't have a big leak regarding UFOs, no political power game motive to do it.
And I wonder if you'd agree with that, because to your point earlier about Christian Gillibrand, if the UAP task force or the AVRO now finds something, it seems to me like maybe that would be worth her staffers and her interns leaking that information to be like, hey, look at this big win by our congressperson. Yeah,
no, that's fair. I wanted to hold on, wait, what is this? What screen is this? I wanted to share. It's not changing for some reason up here. Oh, you know why? Let me share the. I think we ran out of time to listen to Gallego speak. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna include the link in the description below as soon as the show's over. But I'm also going to put the link in the chat here so you guys can check out this discussion with Representative Gallego. I think it's very interesting. And what's hilarious is I heard Mick West break this down, and he took the first thing Gallego said and was like, see, nothing to it, ciao, and completely ignored the rest of the conversation. Maybe we'll get into this on Wednesday, but we've got Guthrie Dice on Wednesday. I have a feeling that's going to be a full 2-hour discussion, right, Rather?
Oh, yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. But what I wanted to do real quick is Alex Sears, because he was supposed to be on the show today. Alex Sears was wrote us a little review about the Gillibrand Amendment, and I thought it was spot on. Absolutely, just one of the best things I've ever heard a political analyst say in regards to this phenomena. And so let me zoom in here for you guys. He writes, Alex Sears, the Gillibrand Amendment is good. Alex. So there you go.
I hope he signs all of his letters like that.
Head UFO analyst at the oh gosh, I totally forgot where he works. At
Daily Caller, right?
The Daily Caller. Yes. Sorry, Alec, but yes. The chief UFO correspondent at Daily Caller, Alex Sears. This Gillibrand Amendment is good. I cannot wait to see that on the front page of the Daily Caller. And yeah, that's the whole article.
Heard it here first.
You heard it here first. The Gillibrand Amendment is good. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, check out that video, you guys, because it is cool. If we got some time later this week, we'll get into it, but it's going to need a lot more than 10 minutes. And then, so we also had a poll that I wanted to go over. And the poll question was, who's your favorite UAP journalist? Jazz Shaw, Jazz Shaw, Jazz Shaw, or Jazz Shaw? And with 10% of the vote, there was a tie between Jazz Shaw and Jazz Shaw. And then in second place with 27% of the vote, Jazz Shaw. And with 54% of the vote, or Jazz Shaw.
He's got my vote too.
He's got my vote as well. So yeah, I guess that's it, you guys. I mean, what do you have this week coming up, rather?
I'm working on a kind of an interesting video about the potential fourth spatial dimension and how that might explain stuff like remote viewing, ESP, and maybe even CE5 and stuff like that. So yeah, be sure you're subscribed over there to check that out.
Do you want to kick on the music for us, Rad?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Step one.
Let's see. Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, we do have about 9 minutes left. I mean, we could end the show a little early. I'm pretty good with that. I think we had a killer discussion. Unless you want to add anything else to it, rather.
Yeah, hell of a discussion. I'm looking forward to the future after today. I think that we're going to get a lot of good news in the next couple of years.
I am too, man. I mean, I'm just like, I just cannot express to you guys out there enough. I know you don't want to hear this. Nobody wants to hear this, but we have to be patient. We have to give this new wave of congressmen and senators, we have to give them enough rope to operate and see what they do with it. And so far, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're fighting for us, even though not a ton of people are demanding it. I mean, there was a question in here, can't remember who asked it, but it was something along the lines of, do you think the big phone home had anything to do with this? A little bit. I'm not going to take credit for that. I think this really got moved down the field by Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon in the testimony of Ryan Graves, Alex Dietrich, and David Fravor. I think that's what really moved the ball forward on this. And then I think us calling, us emailing, us tweeting is an element that they've never had before on this topic. And I think it helped. I don't want to call it the icing on the cake, but I'd say it's that paper wrapper around the cupcake that holds it all in.
Yeah. I mean, you never know, right?
It's a thin layer. You never know. I mean, we have no idea.
Could just be, one single email that hits the right person, intern, that puts a thought in their mind and they bring it up in a conversation that, the butterfly effect. It only takes really, one person.
Well, I can tell you
the better.
There's no doubt in my mind. I know this for a fact, and you can check the receipts. I've got the receipts. Just check the Twitter feed. We hit up Kirsten Gillibrand. She had to have been tweeted about this at least 150 to 200 times, at least during the big phone home, and her entire committee that she sits on. All of the committees that she sits on, as a matter of fact, we hit up hundreds of times, at least in one quick burst. Like we did that a bunch. So that's a new element. Because I can't quantify this stuff, right? It's so difficult for me to do that. But it doesn't hurt. I'll say that. It sure as hell does not hurt the effort.
And I'll say too, I agree with you that we're going to need patience in these next couple of years, but patience doesn't mean silence either, right? We can still be there prodding them along to try to make sure that they're fulfilling their promises and their duties, right?
And if you don't, we'll write them a letter and we'll have a phone home. Hey, this is your election year. Why haven't you made progress on this, Gillibrand? Like you did this 2 years ago and we've got nothing. What the hell's going on? And who is your opponent? And how do they feel on the UAP topic? And where are they as far as getting more data and more transparency with the American people? I don't think it's going to go there, though. I really don't. I think this is the opening of the can of worms that we all want to see, and we're gonna see where it goes. But Silly Humans with a $10 donation. Can we give a thumbs down to Russians creating a ton of space debris today with their ASAT test? Was it Russians? I'll give it a thumbs down.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that, but space debris is a real problem.
I'll give space debris thumbs down every time because that messes with our satellites, that possibly messes with our way to communicate. God forbid if the James Webb Telescope was out there and it got hit by some stupid thing. They say like a pebble traveling at 27,000 miles per hour, it does a lot of damage to a satellite. So, like that would suck. That would totally suck. So yes, thumbs down big time to that. Thank you.
I hate
so
even putting that thought in my brain, Lou, but yeah.
Scares the hell out of me. Well, I think you're going to have to kick the music one more time, rather. And we'll do our outro. Before we get out of here, I want to say thank you to everybody that was here in the chat. We truly appreciate you guys being here. All of the super chats, thank you so damn much for all of the way you guys support the show. We are a public access channel where we're supported by viewers like you, and every single one of those donations make sure that the show goes better, and we're able to do a show every day, except for tomorrow. We're not doing a show tomorrow. Daniel Miller is off tomorrow. He had to take the day off, so no show tomorrow, but I will be on Podcast UFO with Martin Willis. It's his 10th anniversary show, and I just luckily enough got to be his guest for the whole show. But there's going to be like 40 people coming by. This is going to be a really cool show. A lot of folks, a lot of friends, and people that are in that have been in this community for a very long time. So it's going to be a really, really fun show. So come check that out. I'll be tweeting about it. I'm sure I'll send you guys a link out in that way. On Wednesday, we've got Guthrie Dice, which Rather's really excited for. We'll be talking about a lot of cool stuff.
He's got a really interesting article out on Twitter about fourth dimensions and how it might relate to dark matter. It's interesting stuff.
It's definitely interesting stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then on Friday, it's going to be a really fun day. We've got, again, Avi Loeb, and we've got Peter Robbins. So we're going to take the best of the woo and put it with the gala, the best of science has to offer, and see what kind of conversation we get, because
worlds may collide.
Worlds may collide, and who knows, maybe we even get the scientists to think a little bit more openly. Hopefully he won't poo-poo our Cuvier drive or warp drives anymore. But we'll talk to him. We'll talk to him about his appearance over there at the church. I'm forgetting the name of the event. I'm not good with the names of events. I'm sorry, guys. I don't have that stuff in front of me, but you know what I'm talking about. We talked about
National Cathedral.
The National Cathedral. Thank you, Rather, so much. Don't forget to check out the show after the show, or if you're on the road, or if you can't watch us live, we've got a podcast available on iTunes and Spotify or anywhere else you find your fine podcasts. Please do us a favor. If you do subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rate and review. It goes a very long way to make sure the show grows. Man, I was like, I looked at our downloads versus that UFO podcast. I was like, whoa, we've got a long way to go before we ever hit 1 million like those guys. Again, congratulations to Andy and Dan and the whole UAP Media UK team. Like, you guys are awesome. And accolades, well-deserved. 1 million downloads on a podcast. I can't even. We're almost, with this show on a YouTube format, is almost at 500,000 views. Almost. We're close. But we're going to celebrate not 500,000, 350,000. We're far away from 500,000. We'll celebrate 500,000 when we get there. That'll be fun. But also, don't forget, guys, something that helps grow the show. Like, subscribe if you haven't already. If you like what we're doing here, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, share with friends. We hope this is a show that you feel comfortable sharing when it comes to sharing the latest news and reviews and commentary, political actions on the discussion of UAPs. So share the show. And we've got Patreons for Rather. We got Patreon for me and the show. Don't forget to check those out. All of the links are down below. Merch store, all the ways you can help support us are down below. And that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for coming aboard on another episode here of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP, UFO, science, and emerging tech. Futurism and emerging tech. I screwed it up again. It's going to take me a while to really nail that last part. Futurism and emerging tech. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, stay safe out there. Peace.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.